Hello everyone, welcome to William and the Magic Box. Today on our show, we are going to have Paul. Paul is from Scotland, but he lives in California in the USA. So let's see what Paul has to say. Enjoy the interview. Yes. So hello Paul, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. And thank you very much for asking me to join you. This is so nice.
The pleasure is all mine. Thanks so much for taking the time today for the interview. Thank you.
Of course.
So tell me, how's your morning, your day going so far?
Well, it's pretty good. So this morning I had a model. I quite often work with models in the morning or in the early afternoon. So I had a model for usually about 2 hours. I normally do a 2 hour drawing if I have a model, 2.5 hours or so. So I had model today, and after he left, I was quickly then like I had a bite to eat for lunch. So
Oh.
now I'm back ready to go.
What one person needs to have or needs to do to model for you, to modeling for you to draw? What there's something that you look for?
Well, really, the only thing is that they can be comfortable naked. That's all. Because
Ah,
most of the models that I use are nude models. I occasionally work with people, say, in costume or in clothing, but mostly they're nude. So as long as they're okay to be naked, it doesn't matter. I mean, any race, any background, any physical type, I don't care. What I really want is somebody who has an interesting personality. I mean, that's really what it's all about for me. I look for personality most.
interesting, interesting. And Paul, so tell me where you're from.
I'm from Scotland. I'm originally from a very small village or small town in Scotland called Alloa. And that's in the sort of lower part of Scotland, around the middle of Scotland, but half like partway down. I lived there till I was 18. Then I went to art school in Edinburgh, which is the capital of Scotland. And then after that, I've lived outside of the country most of my life. So I'm Scottish, but I've mostly lived in other places.
Wow, you still have the Scottish accent there.
There's no question. I mean, you know the joke that you can take the man out of Scotland, but you can't take Scotland out of the man. I mean, it's always going to be there. It's
I
always
love
going to be there.
And where are you based right now?
So nowadays I live in San Diego in California. I moved here about 5 years ago. I was before this I was living in London. I lived in London for quite a long time, almost 20 years in fact. And I
Wow.
was looking for a place that had good sunlight, good weather, and that I would be able to work most of the year without worrying about the light level. And because England is the British Isles are quite dark. The weather is quite cloudy. It can be a little bit cold, and so I was looking for somewhere that was better weather and had more like a Mediterranean light, really.
Wow. Actually, I'm talking to you now. I can hear the rain up there.
I'm so sorry.
No,
Where
no,
are you based?
actually, I'm based in London, and
Ah,
actually, I'm grateful because of the rain, because somehow, just the sound of it brings me like peace. I don't know. I'm from Brazil, but since I've been in England for so long, I don't know. I have a good relationship with rain. Let's say.
that you have to have. I think if you live in London, you have to have a good relationship with rain. And honestly, I think Scotland is worse in many ways because it rains a lot there, really a lot. But I lived in Japan for quite a few years. I lived there for 6 years, and the
Oh,
Japanese have a thing that they love the sound of rain on the roof or on a window, and there's a kind of happy melancholy about that. It's kind of romantic.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I totally agree with that. There's something about the rain, there's something about the sound that, it just warms my heart. I literally love
Yes,
it. I'm not joking.
I
I love
understand it.
Yeah. It's funny sometimes people are like, they moaning about the rain, which I understand. But at the same time as well, there's something about the rain that brings me, a good part of myself. I don't know why. There's
Oh
something.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely understand it.
So
We need
as
weather.
So as you touched already about your profession, so walk me through a little bit more about your career, how everything started.
Okay, well, so when I left high school at the age of 18, I went to art school in Edinburgh, and I originally intended to be just a painter. I was going to be mostly a painter, and I did a degree in history of art, which I love, and drawing, painting, and printmaking, which I also love. So I went to the art school in Edinburgh, Edinburgh College of Art, and at that time, it was separate from Edinburgh University, but I did a joint degree between the two universities, and I went to Edinburgh College of Art for art and the University of Edinburgh for history of art. So I did the two together. So I got my master's, and I went off to live in France, first of all. I lived there for a couple of years, and then I was getting really interested in Japanese art. So I went to live in Japan, and I lived there so I graduated in 1990, and then I lived there for until the early part of 1993, about February of 93, and I decided then to move to Japan in 93, and I lived there for almost 6 years. I was there until the very end of 99, and there I went to study Japanese printmaking. So Japanese woodblock prints are now a major part of what I do. And in fact, because I had my kind of first success in that, that's the thing that a lot of people know me for. They know me for woodblock printmaking because it's an unusual thing to do nowadays. Not many people do it.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about it. What is about this, this print? So educate me. Tell me about a little bit about it.
Well, they're the kind of historical prints that date back. The technique dates back a long, long way, but it was perfected in about the early part of the 18th century. Okay. And they use wooden blocks to make prints. So there's usually an outline block, and then all of the color blocks are from separate pieces of wood, and they're all carved by hand to fit together to make a full design. And I wanted to learn the real traditional way to do it. So I went to Japan to be an apprentice, and I was apprenticed to a printmaker. And he taught me the whole business. He taught me about carving, and he taught me about printing. So I do the whole process myself, mostly. I mean, I sometimes have assistants who help, but most of the thing I do myself. So if we think about, the famous print by Hokusai of the Great Wave is one of his most famous pieces. And that's a woodblock print. And most of the things that we know of art from Japan of the 18th and 19th centuries are woodblock prints. Wow. So I was quite keen to learn about it and to learn the proper techniques. So as I say, I lived there for almost 6 years, and I learned the process. I still do it now, of course. I'm still making prints today.
Amazing. Very good. Okay, Paul. So during the journey, I'm going to explore a little bit more about your arts and also about your life overall, okay?
Sure, please.
So before we start our journey within the Magic Box, I would like you to tell me something interesting about yourself or something that not many people know about you.
Wow. It's often difficult when people say, what do people not know about you? Because I'm fairly open about this stuff. But one of the things that maybe people don't know is that I am an animal lover who doesn't have a pet. In London, I used to have a dog. And since I moved to San Diego, I don't have a pet, but I love animals. And I very often draw cats and dogs and things in my work, but I don't actually own a pet.
Amazing. All right, that's interesting for sure. Bo, are you ready to go on a beautiful journey through your memories in life and share your point of views?
Let's do it. I'm looking forward to it.
Amazing. Welcome to William and the Magic Box. So I've got here my best friend. Run the fun questions, okay? I'm just gonna play a song now just for us to relax a bit before the first question, okay?
Please do. Thank you.
Right?
That's fine. Go ahead and dance.
Let's do it. Right, so before we start the game, during the journey, if it comes up a question that you don't want to talk about some reason you don't want to answer, always can change, okay?
Okay, of course.
Right, first question for you is, who do you count the most for help?
Wow, that's a really good question. So I'm very lucky to have perhaps 3 or 4 very good friends who are close. They include 2 of my long-term exes who I'm very close with, and a couple of people who are not exes but are good friends. And if I need help, I know I can turn to any of them and they will always, always help me. So they're really important people in my life.
And where are they based in the world?
Well, I'm quite lucky. So I dated 2 different guys in London when I lived there, and they both now live in California by complete chance. It's very lucky. So my most long-term ex I was together with for 7.5 years. He lives in Northern California. And my most recent ex, I was together with for about 4 or 4.5 years, and he now lives in LA, which is 2 hours from where I live. So it's really amazingly convenient.
Wow. So let's see now. I'm sure they are both watching this interview right now, and you have
I
a
hope
chance
so.
and you have a moment to send them a message or to say something to them right now. What would you say?
I would say I very much love them, and I'm happy that they're still in my life. Our relationships were quite long and not always easy. No relationship is easy,
Of course.
but I'm very happy that they're still in my lives because I mean both of them are wonderful people, and they bring so much joy to me.
I can see both of them smiling right now after that.
I hope.
Next question. Next question, Paul. Right.
Please.
If you could have been a moment or event in history, which one that would be and why?
It's a great question. I love that. So there are a lot of things that I think are fascinating. I would very much like to have been in Japan with the first contact with the West in 1863, because Japan had been closed to outside influence for over 200 years. And that connection to America, it was actually an American ship that arrived and forced Japan to open up to Western countries. That must have been a fascinating time. I would have loved to be there, but basically as a fly on the wall to see what that was like. Because Japan was basically still living in the 17th century, and Europe and America had moved on to the 19th century. So
Wow.
it must have been an amazing time. And then that brought in an era when Japan rapidly modernized and changed itself and became a modern European or American style monarchy. And I think that would have been a fascinating place to live. I would have loved to be there.
Wow. As you lived in Japan for a few years, what Japan have taught you?
Oh, I mean, it taught me so many things. And I often say that printmaking itself taught me patience,
Wow.
because you have to be very, very patient. I mean, each print design that I do, it's normally a 3 to 4 month process to make one image. Of course,
Wow.
you're making a multiple at the end. I've usually got 100 of them to sell, but it's one image. And it taught me to take my time and to plan things carefully and to just be okay with how long a process takes. It's an easy way to work, but it was a difficult thing to learn.
You know what, Paul? I'm so fascinated about Japan culture. I've never been there, but it's the top of my bucket list. I think
Mm.
when I go to Japan, I'm gonna come back a different person for sure. I think the Japanese culture, there's something there. You can tell, of course, that they are ahead of us. The way they talk to you, the way they approach you. It's
Yeah.
something about them that I'm sure you know very well. I used to work in hospitality in hotels in London in the past, and I remember sometimes we had those, Japanese guests on the
Mm.
hotel. Oh my God! As soon as they step in the hotel, you could tell, the way they talk to you, the tone of their voice was very calm and very
Mm.
nice. And it's something about it that, yeah,
They're
it's
they're lovely people. It's a lovely country, and as I say, I was happy to live there for so many years. And in fact, even after leaving Japan, I would go back quite often. I was supposed to be there again in 2020 when we had the lockdown. So
yeah.
unfortunately, I wasn't able to go. But I will be back there 'cause I love it. It's a wonderful country, and people are just so kind. They're
Where were you?
amazing.
Where were you based there? In Tokyo or not?
Yes, yeah, I lived
Then,
in Tokyo. I lived in Tokyo, but I had friends in other parts of Japan as well. I had friends in Kyoto, and actually, my Japanese boyfriend, whom I was with for about 4 years, his family was up in the north of Japan. So I would quite often go to the north to meet them, and then also out towards the west to meet the people who were friends in Kyoto. So I traveled around, even though I was living in Tokyo. It's quite easy. They have bullet trains that are very fast, and so
Mhm.
you can travel around the country without too much trouble. And so it was a great place to live. I loved it. I miss Japan.
Oh, sweet. Next question. Let's do it.
Sure.
Before the next question, what is the biggest joy of being an artist? What is about that, feeds your soul, you feel the best of yourself? And the flip side, what's the most challenging part?
Those are great questions too. Well, so to be honest, the best part is that I wake up in the morning and my day, although I might have planned it myself, my day is really my own. Like I can decide what to do in advance. If I want to work on a certain project, I do that. If I want to make prints, I can make prints. If I want to paint, I can paint. If I want to draw, so basically I'm my own boss. And that definitely suits me well. I love that part. It's one of the things that keeps me doing it year after year, and I've been doing it for more than 30 years, so it's a long time. The worst part, I would say, is a lack of financial security. Because I don't have a weekly or monthly salary, there's no money coming in every month. So if I do have an exhibition or I have successful sales, I have to be a bit careful about the money that comes in, just to make sure that I have enough money to live on for the next, however many years or months until I get something else. So on the plus side, there's a lot of freedom. On the negative side, not so financially easy.
Nice. Okay. Next question is, what scares you the most about your future?
You're asking a man of 56 about his future. And so, yes, I mean, I now know that as time goes on, the body starts to fall apart and things become much, much more difficult than they once were. So I think in long-term future, although I don't have health problems, I think my health is the thing that worries me most. I want to still be able to carry on doing what I do and to make my work, but I need to have at least a reasonable amount of health to do that. So that is the one thing that I'm most concerned about. However, the great thing about being an artist is that I'm never going to be forced to retire. I can just keep doing this forever until I drop down dead, and it's fine. So, that's what I want for the future. I want to carry on the job that I do, the job that I love, until I finally drop down dead.
But when you think about yourself, when you analyze yourself, what's the best part of being Paul? What do you like the most about being you?
Gosh, that's a good question. I mean, for somebody who comes from Scotland and you're not used to talking about the things that you love about yourself, that's a tough question because, I was brought up not to talk about my best qualities and to keep myself in a much more modest place. But I would say, I think I'm a very loyal friend. Like people who know me know that if they're in my life, if they're a part of my life, then I will always be loyal to them for that. And sometimes that's been difficult because, for example, if I like a couple and they split up, it's sometimes hard to be friends with both people in the couple. That's a difficult situation, but I always try to do that. If I care for both of them equally, I will always try that. And I would say that, I care about people. I care about who they are. I care about personalities. And that's the thing that motivates me always in my connections to people. I really care about people. So that would, I think, be the thing that I think I like most about myself.
Amazing. Next one, let's do it.
Sure.
Next question is, which movie had a big influence on you?
That's actually quite an easy question because it's the archetypal gay movie. It's Wizard of Oz from 1939 with I think some of the greatest designs in it that were ever made. I mean, when you consider the impact that movie had, not necessarily at that time because it wasn't so well loved at the time, but later through its showing on TV, it became a major, major film for a lot of people. And obviously gay people identify with it. The phrase, "a friend of Dorothy," became a kind of classic phrase for gay men for a long, long time because it was seen as kind of an archetypal gay movie that has nothing gay in it. It's got a lot of things in it that are very campy and very colorful and very over the top, but it's not actually a gay movie. So I love that film. I've always loved it, and every time I see it, I enjoy it more and more.
When was the last time you watched it?
Oh, I probably saw it about 3 or 4 years ago. I've seen it since I've lived in California. So I saw it fairly recently. I have a friend who is a Judy Garland fan. I mean, he loves Judy Garland. So we watched several of her movies, and that was one of them. And when we were planning to watch it, he said to me, "Oh, you've probably seen this many times." I said, "Yes, I have, but I'd be happy to watch it again. I love it. It always makes me smile."
Oh, sweet. Next question, let's do it.
Sure.
Right. So before the next question, let's talk about Scotland.
Mm.
Since you've been away, tell me, what you miss the most about Scotland, about the culture, about your roots out there.
Yes.
And the second part of the question is, since you've been living abroad, you live in different countries. Tell me through your experience, what's something that people get totally wrong about Scotland or about Scottish people, and tell me something that they get it right. When they
Okay.
talk about Scotland, the Scottish people, they get completely right. Tell me.
Well, so the first part of that, the things that I miss about Scotland, I would say the landscape of Scotland is breathtaking and beautiful. We're very lucky there because, it's a land of mountains and lots of nature and forests and rocky, craggy seashores, and the landscape is gorgeous. It's so beautiful. The weather, not so much, but other things are great. So, that part of it is something I like. Um, there's definitely in my mind a close connection with that because as I was growing up, my family was very keen on taking holidays within Scotland, and so we would go to different places, and I got to know a lot of parts of Scotland. So I mean, I think it's a beautiful place. I also, to be honest, I also miss food. There's certain food that I miss because obviously it was the food that I grew up with as a child, and in my family, all my matriarchs, my mother and my grandmothers were cooks. They loved cooking. They loved making food. So I definitely miss that to some extent. Now, the second part of that, what do people get wrong? So it's very funny because most people's image of Scotland comes from a couple of sources, and all of those sources are not actually Scottish. So, for example, people of an older generation will remember a musical from the 50s called Brigadoon, which was written by two Americans. And then there was a movie in the 80s called Outlander, which again was not written by a Scotsman. It contained a Scottish character. There was a very famous movie called Braveheart, again, I think in the later 80s, again, not written by a Scotsman, and which is full of historical nonsense that's nothing to do with truth. And then most recently, there's been a series on TV called Outlander, which is adapted from a bunch of books by an American writer, which actually there's some historical accuracy, but not so much. So, people have this image of Scotland from fictional things, which
I
are
see.
not really true. They're
Interesting.
a kind of romantic fantasy.
Uh-huh.
So that part, no, not so much. However, the things that are true, I think there's something about the character of people from Scotland. We're usually quite independent. Again, I mentioned loyalty. I'm very loyal to my friends, and I think that's a part of it. And I think that the idea that Scotland is all about castles and Scotch whiskey and so on, well, it's not really only that, but that part is also true. I mean, like anywhere we have cities, but it's a very small population. It's only, I think, about 4.8 million people. So it's a small population in quite a large country. So there's lots of open space, and it's not really so much of an urban situation, say, as like living in a big city like London. It's much more rural, and more people live in the countryside than other places. So maybe that to some extent is what's true about Scotland. Like, the countryside is lovely. People are friendly, and they're usually very welcoming if you go there. So that part I think is true. We don't all wear kilts all the time. I mean, of course. I mean, I have a kilt, but I don't wear it every day.
Next question is,
Sure.
what is the most beautiful thing someone has ever said to you?
Oh my Lord. That is a tough one because, again, growing up in Scotland, it's more difficult to receive praise for things. People will usually criticize. So, beautiful things that people have said. I love it when people are positive about the paintings or drawings that I do of them as a model. I really love that because it feels very personal that they've seen in my work something that reflects their true personality. Do you know? So if I draw or paint somebody and they react to it in a really positive way, that is wonderful. So actually, a specific case, I had a model just a few days ago who is in his later 40s, and he has a full beard. He's quite chunky. He's what you would probably call a muscle bear, I guess.
Right.
And the first time that we worked together, he actually cried when he saw the final piece.
Oh,
And he said to me, it's so touching that you found my personality in the way that you've done the drawing. And then every time I work with him, he gets a little bit teary-eyed at the end when he sees the final piece. And I think that's so lovely. It just really touches me that he feels the feeling that I have when I see him.
wow. Amazing. Very good. Right. I have 3 questions left. Let's do it.
Perfect. Please, please.
Next question for you is, okay, we talked about a movie before. Which book had a big influence on you?
Wow, is good. Okay, so when I was a student, I read James Baldwin's Giovanni's Room, which is about an American in Paris falling for an Italian immigrant in Paris. And that probably influenced the way that I wanted to live in France straight after I graduated. So when I was a student, I used to go to France every summer. I would go there and spend a month or two, wandering around and practicing my French and just, doing artsy things in France, painting or whatever. And I spent quite a bit of time in Paris, obviously. So I graduated in 1990 and I went to live there for 2.5 or 2 and a bit years. At that time, my feeling for France was really influenced by Baldwin's Giovanni's Room, because it's about a relationship between 2 men, which is not always easy, but it's a very beautiful and tender connection. And that thing I thought was lovely. Obviously, it dates from a much earlier period, and I was there in the 90s. But it was a wonderful book. And because it's a gay-themed book, it kind of fitted very well with my life. So I love that book. It's one of my favorites. I've now read it many times. I've read it several times.
Wow. As about being gay, how was for you growing up as a gay boy back in Scotland?
Not easy, I'll be honest. So I found that there was quite a lot of bullying when I was young. And we're talking about the 70s and very early 80s, where people were not very supportive about being gay, and it was quite a negative thing. I was quite lucky. My family was fairly supportive, and I came out to them actually when I was 16, which is kind of unusual because most people who were gay in Scotland in those days did not come out. I mean, they kept very quiet about it. But I was always quite political, and I thought it was important to come out and accept who you were. So I came out, 2 years before I left home. So for 2 years, I was living at home as a gay person, which, has its own problems. Obviously, that's not always easy. But it was better when I went to Edinburgh and to university and art school than when I was living in a village, because the village is very gossipy. Life in a village, everyone knows everyone. They know each other's story. They want to share the stories. So there is a lot of gossip. But I found, living in a city was a lot easier. So, that was a trade-off. I left all of the small village life behind.
Oh, good. 2 questions left. Let's do
Please.
it. Before the next question, I'm gonna ask you a tough question right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh. I can see a lot of art behind you, of course. Beautiful art behind you. Two parts of the question. The first part is, if you could pick any of those arts behind you, like for any reason, is one of your favorites that's standing behind you, which one that would be? And the second part of the question is, through your career, through your life, which art you've made that you're never gonna forget? For any reason, always gonna have a special place in your heart.
Great questions. So I'm going to slide slightly this way, and you can probably see the very large picture behind me, which is actually a fairly recent picture. It was done just at the start of this year with the purple background, the figure seated on the floor. So that was working with a model that I've worked with many times before. And he is, first of all, a lovely person. So that's a lovely connection. This is the one piece that I think I'm probably most happy with since I've lived in America. It's actually the largest picture I've painted here in the US. So it's about 60 inches by about 50 inches, which is quite big for a painting. And maybe it doesn't look so big behind me, but it's quite a big painting. And that one is the one I'm happiest with at the moment. There is another picture which is not here at the moment because it's in a different space. And that one is a portrait of my most recent ex. And I wouldn't sell that. And I think I'm most happy with it over all of my works because it was capturing a moment at the beginning of our relationship when, you know, we were very open and very vulnerable with each other. And it's actually a picture of him in bed. And he's kind of seated on his elbows looking at me, and I'm painting him in the bed. And it just captures that moment so well for me. So I think I'll probably never sell that picture because it's such an important thing to me. So
Wow, very good. Nice one. Next question is, do you have any pet peeves?
Pet peeves. Well, I can tell you this because it happened to me the other day. I get very annoyed when models make an arrangement to come and model for me and then don't turn up.
Ooh.
Because it's very irritating to be ready to work, to be ready to go, and either they message 5 minutes before and say I can't make it for whatever reason, or they just don't message. And both of these things are very, very, very annoying. I think that's one of the things I dislike most. I get it. I mean, people sometimes have a problem, but strangely, I've found this more in California than any other place I ever lived. It does happen a lot. So I wonder, is it just California or is it all Americans? I don't know. But I definitely find that people cancel or just don't show up very regularly. And, you know, I work with maybe 5 or 6 models a week, 6 or 7 models a week. And so I like to be sure that I give them all enough time to work. And I make sure I have a planner where everything is carefully laid out and I make sure everybody has time. So if I don't have the model turn up, then I've got a block of 2.5 hours or so, which is empty. And that's kind of annoying. So that is my pet peeve.
California guys, let's be more, you know, up to date. Let's be more like, you know, now after this interview, I'm sure
Just
you're gonna
tell me.
Yes, just, at least
Just
if you
tell
cannot
me.
make, if you cannot make it, you know, just you cannot do it for any reason or other, you know, but
Yes.
give advance, give your keep timers yourself.
That's exactly it. Advance notice would help.
Ready for the last question?
Sure.
Let's do it. Before the last question, Paul, you know, when was the moment that you realized, okay, I was born to be an artist? You know, you felt it. You thought, okay, this is my path, this is my life. And the second part of the question is, did you have the support of your family?
So the first part, I was probably about 15 or 16, and I had a long talk with an old friend of mine about what I was going to do in the long-term future. And he had a certain plan for his life, and I knew for sure that I wanted to be an artist. I just completely knew it. I only wanted to be a painter or, you know, some kind of artist. But I wasn't necessarily sure that that was a real job that people could do. So, you know, I knew people could be an artist, but then I thought, oh, well, maybe I have to be a teacher as well, or I may have to have some other job, you know, a daytime job so that I can bring in money for living. But I really was convinced then that this is my life. I mean, because I couldn't imagine of all the other things that were available, I couldn't imagine them being my life's work. I really only saw myself as an artist. I mean, nothing else. And I think I was quite good at school. I mean, I had good grades. I did lots of different activities, and there were lots of things that maybe could have been, you know, a potential job or career. But really, this was the only one. I mean, for me, it was the only thing because I was so passionate about it, and it was what I wanted to do really from quite a young age. So probably about 14, 15, 16, I really solidified, like, this is going to be my life. It's going to be this. And, you know, it has been ever since.
And your parents, your family support?
And my parents. Yeah, well, actually, I was very lucky. So both of my parents had their own jobs, their own companies. And it meant that they were quite keen on me doing something independently too. They weren't trying to push me into something I didn't want to do. when I sat them down and said, okay, these are my choices and I'd like to do this as a job, one thing was that my father said, would you maybe consider architecture as a possibility? Because, you know, it might be a thing that would bring in more regular salary and, you know, I could live perhaps more easily from architecture. Although I like architecture, it's not something that I'm passionate about. So it could never really have been my career. But, you know, he was wise to suggest it. And I didn't mind that he suggested it. So when we talked about it and I said, well, no, this is really what I want, they were fully on board. And they always supported my career, always. So I'm very glad for that. Thank goodness.
Wow. It's a big plus, isn't it? When you have the support of your parents, I think it just changes everything. You just go for it because you know you're in the safe place.
Well, exactly. And, you know, if you feel that the family is behind you on your choices, it's a wonderful thing. I mean, it really makes a huge difference. So, yes, I'm very glad about that. Thank goodness.
Amazing. Last question is, tough question. If someone gave you an envelope with your death date inside of it, would you open it or not? And why?
I would open it, yes. Because I would like to know. And also, I'd like to prepare everything in advance so that when I went, everything was, you know, ready for my departure. I would always rather know than not know. So I'm one of those people who, you know, ever since the early 80s, I've tested for HIV regularly. I've always gone for checkups for sexual health because I want to know the truth. I don't want to live in denial. So if I could know my death date, I would 100% want to know it, of course.
Dying for you, it's something that bothers you, it's something that you have a good relationship with, it scares you, or it's just a matter of life?
It's absolutely a matter of life, I think. I mean, I'm living in a situation, my mother died some years ago, my father's still alive and he has remarried, but I don't see death as anything particularly scary or worrying. And, you know, I'm an atheist, so people might assume that because of that, because I don't have a strong ideological, theological belief, that then I might be nervous about it. But actually, I'm not. I think it's a perfectly normal part of life. Everybody dies. And it's as well to accept that early on and be okay with it. You know, I was very well aware that all of my grandparents died. And while you love somebody, you have to accept that they're going to not be there at some point. So I'm okay with it. And there was a strange incident a little while ago. I was on a plane crossing the Atlantic, and by mistake, they announced that the plane was going to ditch into the ocean. It was completely by mistake. But I was one of the people who was very, very calm about it. And I had a bag with my passport in it, and I took my passport out and tucked it into my pocket because I thought, you know, if they find my body, at least they can identify who I am. And I was completely calm. There were people screaming and people shouting and just going crazy. And I was just really, really calm. So the idea of death itself doesn't really worry me that much. What I would be aware of and probably afraid of is a long drawn out illness before death. That's the part that I would be afraid of, because I don't want to be incapacitated for a long time. And I would definitely not want that. But death itself, no, I'm fine with it. I'm completely okay. I mean, I've lived a lot longer than many people have a chance. Even at, I mean, this age, I'm 56, and I've lived much longer than many people get. So I consider myself lucky in that way. You know, when I was younger, in the 80s and early 90s, people, good friends of mine, were dying of HIV and AIDS, and I was lucky enough to survive. So I knew many people who did not have the chance that I have. And so obviously I'm grateful for that opportunity. So I can't ever be afraid of death.
Oh my God, this incident in the airplane, how long did it take for them to tell, okay, this is a mistake? Did it take too long or not?
No, not very long. About 3 or 4 minutes of people screaming and getting really nervous, and babies crying and women shouting and so on. And about 4 or 5 minutes later, the pilot came on and he said, oh, I'm very sorry, folks. It seems like by mistake, the emergency was. I mean, okay, so it was a complete mistake. And then everybody calmed down. It was fine.
Imagine the relief of people after this, you know, when they find out the truth. Oh my God. Imagine
exactly. It's been a narrow escape.
Right, it's not the end yet. Let's play now the word association game. Okay, I'm going to give away some words. Just tell one word that comes to your mind. Quick thinking.
Sure.
Let's start with money.
Trouble.
Fear.
Not important.
Family.
Love.
Life.
Happiness.
One word for love.
Closeness.
Sex.
Fun.
Politics.
Not interested.
Religion.
Not interested.
I knew you'd say that for some reason.
Of course.
Friendship.
Again, love.
Desire.
That's a difficult one. It has to be 2 words, I'm afraid. Beautiful man.
Okay. Regret.
Je ne regrette rien.
Oh, I love it. Wish.
Fulfillment.
Happiness.
Contentment.
One word for California.
Crazy.
One word for Japan.
Serene.
London, one word.
Noisy.
One word for Scotland.
Misty.
Interesting. What the meaning of misty?
Well, in the sense of mists and fog, and so I was going to use a Scottish word, which is dreich, and dreich really means grey, overcast with a drizzling rain. But I thought you might know that word since it's a Scottish word.
I'm glad that you said both of them, because now it's just made my day. I learned something new. I love it. Amazing.
I'm so happy to share.
Amazing. And the last one now, if you could define all your arts, your work in one word, what that would be?
That's so hard because I do so many things. I do paintings and prints and drawings, but I think I would like to think of my work as serious, even when it's not serious. Like I'm quite often playful in the work, but I think I'm serious about it. So serious, maybe.
Amazing. Let's pretend now I'm going to meet your best friends for a coffee, and I'm going to ask your best friend. Define Paul in one positive word and one negative word only, or the best friend would say.
I would like to think that they would say, again, I've mentioned before, but loyalty. I mean, I think I'm very loyal to my friends, so hopefully that. Negative word, flirtatious, because I have a very bad habit of flirting with handsome men who are waiters or work in restaurants or cafes. So yeah, that might not be a good thing for some people.
Oh, love your honesty. I love it. Let's play now, Paul, in the magic box, and you can ask me a question. Right, but before you ask me the question, since you live in Japan, tell me what's your favorite Japanese word?
Okay, I've actually, I didn't know you were going to ask this, but there was a word I was talking about with a friend the other day. So the word that I would choose that is my favorite is jozu. Now, jozu is a Japanese word for skillful. Mm-hmm. If you say somebody is jozu at something, or the phrase, for example, oh, jozu ne means, it literally means you are skillful. But for me, that's an archetypal image of Japanese politeness, because it doesn't always mean that the person's actually skillful. And it's just a nice way to make them feel better about themselves. So people would always say to me, oh, Nihongo jozu ne, which means your Japanese is so skillful. But in reality, it just means you can say 3 or 4 words of Japanese. So they're so lovely.
There's a twist there. I love it.
It's so sweet. And it makes me, I love that. I think it's very cute.
Amazing. Right, you can ask me a question now, Paul.
Okay, so you now live in London. So first part of the question, what was it that made you choose London over anywhere else? And second, what do you like most about it?
Love the question. Love the question. Growing up back in Brazil, when I was 12 years old, I had a opportunity, a scholarship to study English. I was passionate about the language, and I always wanted to live in a country where I could speak English every single day. That was my dream as a teenager. I remember looking my books, like learning books, and there was the picture of Big Ben, picture of Eiffel Tower, different part of the world, and I was like, oh my God, I was fascinated about the language and learning English. So, back in Brazil, we have this America dream. Everyone wants to go to the US, yeah,
Of course,
so,
yes.
including myself.
Mm.
Long story short, I had the opportunity to live in Portugal. Yeah, in Portugal. So I lived in Porto for almost 5 years, and after that, I moved to London. And I can tell you, Paul, I live a dream every single day because I speak English every single day. So the main reason, it's funny how life takes you in a direction that you're not expecting. Never thought in my life live in Portugal. I never thought in my life one day live in London, and I'm so grateful that life presented me London, because I can tell you, I meant to be here for some reason. It's as I was telling about the rain doesn't bother me. So
Mhm.
all those things that I think there's something about London that I feel very grateful and privileged as well to be here. I think, when I talk to people around the world, like during the interviews, and they mention about, oh my God, how is living in London? I would love to live in London. I'd love to visit London. And that's how, you feel grateful, because you are in a city where, as you know very well, it's busy, it's noisy, it's everything. However, it's a place that I feel privileged to be, and I'm so grateful that life brought me here, because, yeah. And the second part of the question, what I like the most about London, it's about the diversity. People here,
Oh, yeah.
you walk around London, you see people from different cultures, people expressing themselves in a way that you only see in London.
Mm.
People, there's a way of, you feel safe in a way, leaving your door, expressing yourself, and you see so amazing people expressing their art, expressing their, the way they want to be, the way they want to express themselves, and it's so beautiful and fascinating to see that, because you are in a place where, you are part of it somehow.
Yeah.
You are part of it, and I think that's what I like the most, that, when I leave my door, I know that, I'm going to learn, I'm going to see something different, I'm going to connect with something that I never thought in my life, I'm going to educate myself about something. So yeah, that's what I like the most about London. It's about the diversity. It's about the atmosphere in London, that it brings a lot of joy. You learn a lot, surrounded by culture and people around, So I think that's what I like the most about the city. And I can speak English every single day.
That's a major part. I love that. Well, as you know, I lived there for 20 years, so I love it too. And for those same reasons, I mean, you're right, the diversity is
Yeah.
amazing. And actually, I lived in Stockwell, which has quite a large Portuguese and Brazilian
Yeah.
community. So
Yes.
I was in touch with quite a lot of Portuguese speakers when I was there. And I love that. I love that aspect of it. It's a great thing.
Absolutely, and I understand people here. It can be very fast as well. London, it can be, everything happens so fast. You don't have too much time. People, they are always busy. However, it's a beauty behind as well, because you just feel like you are living. You feel like things
Yeah.
are happening. And you cannot go away. You need to go with the flow. You need to live as well. You need to live every single day. So yeah, that's London. That's what I like the most about being here.
That's so nice. That makes me so happy.
Amazing. Paul, did you enjoy the interview?
Oh, very much. Thank you so much. You've been very kind to me, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks again for bringing this energy. I love your energy. I think it's amazing to
Thank
see a
you.
Scottish guy like living the other side of the world. And I can tell you, I've known so many Scottish people, and there is something friendly about Scottish culture that you know very well. There's some friendness. I had a good colleague at work, and he was Scottish, and he was like, William, we are everywhere. As you said, you can leave Scotland, but Scotland cannot leave you. It's
Exactly.
some,
It's
yeah,
always there. It's true.
absolutely. So thanks so much. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for being so sweet and accepting the invitation. But before you go, if you can share a positive message or anything that you live by.
So I would say if I have a positive message, it is that whoever we are and wherever we live, always trying to be kind to other people, because this is the same for everyone. We're all living in a difficult life and we all have our own struggles and battles. So I always try to think about other people and be kind to other people, because they're probably going through things I don't know about. So that would be my message. Let's all be kind to each other.
And it's so simple to be kind, and it doesn't take much of us to be kind. And in the end of the day, when you spread kindness, it comes back to you in such a bigger proportion. So yeah, let's be kind.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.
Thank you so much. Will do.
Okay?
Thank you very much indeed. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
So, did you like the show? Don't forget to give a like, to share it, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to be part of the show as well, first, subscribe to our channel, and after that, just go to our website, www.williamandthemagicbox.com, and send us a request saying why you'd like to be part of the show. And I see you there. Bye bye, see you next time.